When it comes to crossovers, you usually expect things of a similar nature to be combined, but every once in a while a company will take two completely random and completely opposite ideas and combine them into something new. And that's what we have with the newly released Trials of the Blood Dragon, combining the long-running Trials Motorcycle 2.5D platforming series with the over-the-top 80s action movie Far Cry 3 standalone DLC of Blood Dragon. But is this 80s crossover with tons of action and motorcycles radical enough for your download? Or is it just a neon nightmare? If you're unfamiliar with the Trials series, it is a 2.5D perspective motorcycle game, usually other vehicles involved as well, with a heavy emphasis on the interesting physics. It is kind of a take on the actual sport of motorcycle trials, but they go extremely over the top with extremely challenging courses, and the physics and dynamics that it takes in order to complete the various trials is usually quite a blast to handle. And then, if you're unfamiliar with it, Blood Dragon was a standalone expansion for Far Cry 3. It was a completely different story that took place in an alternate universe that was very heavily inspired by 80s action movies and is absolutely filled with interesting neon, blue, and purples and pinks that will definitely catch your eye even from a very far distance. Combining a first-person shooter, though, with a motorcycle racing game is a completely interesting idea, but they have decided to do it. For longtime fans of Blood Dragon that have been craving an actual sequel to that absolutely stellar standalone TLC, unfortunately, this is pretty much the sequel, and it is very different in almost every way from the original Blood Dragon, and it's pretty much Trials with some interesting action ideas thrown into it. The game's story is a sequel. You're first seeing the main character from the original Blood Dragon after the events of that game, but you're actually in control of his two children, Slater and Roxanne. If you haven't played through Blood Dragon, though, which I do highly recommend if you like a good, interesting, first-person, open-world style of shooter, but either way, there will be some minor spoilers from that game exposed here in Trials of the Blood Dragon, just because of the story and the fact that it is a sequel to that. While it's going to be a hard sell for Blood Dragon fans, on the opposite side though, Trials fans are probably going to absolutely love it, as this is basically a new map pack or new expansion onto the already great Trials series. The motorcycle and vehicle mechanics carry over from the other Trials games, and while it may not be as in-depth with customization this time around with Trials of the Blood Dragon, in fact you can't customize your characters at all until you end up completing the main storyline, but the challenge of playing the courses over and over again trying to get a better rank is still very much a part of it. The game's levels feature a strict time limit that thankfully, even if it does run out, it's not game over for you, but your goal is to see how high of a score you can get and get a better overall ranking. Since I'm not as familiar with some of the newer Trials releases, I'm not sure how many new ideas are truly explored here. You not only have your motorcycle levels, you also have some larger vehicles, mine carts, jetpacks, which unfortunately I had an absolutely terrible time trying to get through, especially one level in particular where you're not only controlling a jetpack, but you have a bomb strapped to you the entire time, and if the bomb hits walls or runs into you, it explodes, so I reloaded quite a few checkpoints during the course of that particular stage. There's also platforming and running and gunning sections that are in various levels. Some levels are just those types of sections alone, whereas later levels are a mix of some motorcycle and vehicle parts and then some platforming and running and gunning style of levels. In these running and gunning areas, you have to still platform and jump with your character. You can duck under cover and duck underneath things, as well as you're using the right analog stick in order to aim and fire at the various enemies and various other targets that you may need to hit in order to progress. Because of the very nature of the Trials series and being very difficult, with a lot of extremely tough areas and jumps for you to master, the checkpoint system is extremely lenient, and thankfully you can reset a checkpoint at any time by pressing the circle button, so you can go back in case you accidentally ended up getting stuck, or you already know impending failure is coming up. You can quickly get back to that checkpoint, there's no load time in between, so that you can get right back and try that next jump or that next area again without too much of a hassle. However, by using the checkpoints and failing your jumps, you do get points deducted at the end of a level. Basically, your level score is based on how quickly you beat the level, and then you'll get deductions for how many times you had to go back to one of the checkpoints. The game's main story takes place over 25 missions, all with different set pieces and different chapters to break them up. You'll have like a Raiders of the Lost Ark or Temple of Doom styles of levels. You'll have the colony bases that you'll be taking over, levels in Japan, and even traveling to Mars, with an interesting nod to Doom, having you actually travel to Hell. Throughout the course of the various levels, there are cutscenes to break things up. They are these animated, cartoony style cutscenes. Not a whole lot of actual animation, a lot of still animation with it, and voice acting for all the characters, with the very over-the-top America, freedom, and all kinds of 80s slang and action movie terms that are thrown into the mix. Though the two main characters in particular aren't really the best voice acted. I'm not sure if it was intentional, though I'm pretty sure it definitely was intentional. They just come off as awkward and honestly not great, though the other characters that are voice acted are perfectly fine. Besides the main 25 story missions, there are a few unlockable missions and some collectibles to find scattered throughout the various levels, as well as there's a couple extra little missions that you can buy from the Ubisoft Uplay store. If you have a Uplay account, you amass points slowly during the course of playing through things like unlocking trophies or achievements, and then you can actually spend these points on a few bonus things here in Trials of the Blood Dragon, a couple of little extra courses, as well as some concept art. There's also collectible stickers that are done in a very 80s style. Some of them are throwbacks to like the Garbage Pail Kids that you can also get for your photo sticker album. While I wouldn't say that the graphics in Trials of the Blood Dragon are anything mind-blowing, I really do like certain set pieces, especially the levels in Tokyo and any of the ones themed really around the core areas of Blood Dragon, with the blues, neon pinks, and purples that really pop out at you, and just some really cool overall track designs and set pieces to go along with them. Some became increasingly frustrating, and even some of those frustrating ones, particularly the last level in Japan, they overall though were fun to play through, and only caused mild aggravation before I was able to figure out exactly what I needed to do in order to get past them. One of the things I loved in Blood Dragon was the soundtrack, and the soundtrack for One of the things I loved in Blood Dragon was the soundtrack, and the soundtrack for Trials of the Blood Dragon is done by Power Glove. If you're unfamiliar with them, they're a video game cover band. I've seen them live many times, and they have an absolutely great show that they end up putting on, and the music all fits with the 80s style. You can actually listen to it from a boombox inside of the kid's room, as well as if you want to, you can buy a game and soundtrack bundle on any of the stores for $19.99, so $5 more than the standard price for the game. From a technological standpoint, the game ran fine. I didn't run into any slowdown or major glitches, a few minor clipping things here and there, and just some minor things with the overall physics. It is a Trials game, so sometimes you may not land quite the way you're expecting with the physics engine. You may end up going flying off your bike in ragdoll style, but that's just part of what makes Trials fun and entertaining. Overall, though, I did have a lot of fun with Trials of the Blood Dragon. Unfortunately, it is a bit short, taking me just under 2.5 hours to complete the main story and all the main courses. But a lot of what makes the Trials series so fun, though, is replaying and trying to get the A's and the A+, and trying to beat out your friends for those high scores. I do recommend the game to Trials fans. It does not have maybe as much customization and the multiplayer options that you've come to know and love from the actual Trials series, but it still is very fun. If you like that style of gameplay and those mechanics and those physics, you're gonna probably have a lot of fun here with a few of the unique, interesting things that have been thrown into this one over some of the other Trials games. Definitely may make it worth your while. However, as a Blood Dragon fan, you may want to just avoid it. It is a sequel, which is a shame because I don't know if we're ever going to get a true sequel to that awesome game that was Far Cry Blood Dragon. In conclusion though, Trials of the Blood Dragon is colorful, fun, and definitely has that 80s feel, which I know is kind of being overdone nowadays, but I still very much enjoy it. My final score though for Trials of the Blood Dragon is going to be a 6 out of 10. I do recommend it to Trials fans, but Blood Dragon fans just may want to stay away. The game is available on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC for $14.99. And anyway guys, that will wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.